When I turned pro, my whole intention was to make a living. I mean, coming from a Pacific Island,
I think you
you
did
have to
that.
make a
Yeah.
living. Yeah, work.
Mission
Yeah,
accomplished.
yeah. I mean, even in Australia, a lot of guys they just want to make a living out of
Mhm.
playing golf. I mean, if you get good enough, obviously there's other intentions. But my goal was to make a good living. And even when I first came in '93, my whole idea or goal was to keep my tour card.
The truth is, at 62 years old, Vijay Singh remains one of the most controversial figures in golf history. 3 major championships, 34 PGA Tour wins, world number 1, Hall of Fame. A legacy that towers over almost everyone who ever picked up a club. But behind all that success sits a question that has haunted him for nearly 40 years. In 1985, at just 22 years old, he was banned from professional golf after accusations of changing his scorecard in Jakarta. One stroke, one tournament, one decision that nearly destroyed him. Now, decades later, his version of what really happened is finally coming out, and it is shaking up everything we thought we knew about that day. If you are into stories like this, hit the hype button and give this video some hype. It helps a lot, and it tells me to make more deep dives like this. So here's the real question. Was Vijay Singh a talented young player crushed by a system that did not want him? Or was he someone who tried to game the rules, got caught, and then spent 40 years acting like the victim? By the end of this story, you will see why the answer might be more complicated and more damning than either side wants to admit. To understand how Vijay Singh became the man he is today, you have to go back to where it all started. Fiji, a tiny island nation in the Pacific where golf was not exactly a path to riches. Vijay was born in 1963 to a working-class family. His father was an airplane technician who also taught golf on the side. There were no elite academies, no country club memberships, no connections to the professional tours in America or Europe. Just a kid who wanted to be great at something. After school, young Vijay would jump the fence at Nadi International Airport, sprint across active runways, and reach the 18-hole course on the other side. He would practice under mango trees until it was too dark to see the ball. Alone, obsessed. By the time he was 17, he was already the island champion, winning practically every medal Fiji had to offer. Local people said he was so confident, he would sometimes sell his trophies before the tournaments even ended. He knew he was going to win. That cockiness, that absolute certainty in his own ability, was part of his identity from the start. But confidence without money is just noise. Vijay did not have the financial backing that American or European players took for granted. So in 1982, at 19 years old, he left Fiji and headed to Australia to play on the mini tours. Small towns, dusty courses, barely any prize money. It was supposed to be his launching pad to bigger things. Instead, it became the first warning sign that Vijay Singh and the golf establishment were never going to get along. During his time in Australia, he was sanctioned by the Australian PGA. The charge was what organizers called shady financial shenanigans. Specifically, he had been making expensive long-distance phone calls back to Fiji and then leaving the tournament organizers with the bill. To him, it was desperation. He was homesick, broke, and just trying to stay connected to his family. To the authorities, it was a character flaw, a sign that this kid did not respect the rules or the people running the game. It was a minor incident, but it planted a seed in the minds of golf officials. Vijay Singh was trouble. That seed grew into something much darker 3 years later in Jakarta. The 1985 Indonesian Open was supposed to be just another event on the Asian Tour, which back then was called the Asia Golf Circuit. Vijay was 22, still struggling to make a name for himself, still trying to find a way into the bigger tours in Europe and America. He needed to make the cut. He needed the paycheck. And that desperation, according to officials, led him to do something unforgivable in the world of golf. They accused him of pencil whipping, changing his score on the official scorecard. Here is what allegedly happened. After the second round, Vijay's total was 1 over par. That put him right on the edge of missing the cut. If he missed the cut, he would go home with nothing. But somehow, when the scorecards were turned in, his total had changed. Instead of 1 over par, it now showed 1 under par. Exactly the difference he needed to make the cut and get paid. One stroke. That is all it took. In golf, scorecards are sacred documents. Players sign them after every round. Markers verify the scores hole by hole. Tournament committees trust that every number is accurate. The entire system depends on honesty because there are no referees following every group around the course, watching every shot, counting every swing. If players cannot be trusted to report their own scores truthfully, the whole game collapses. That is why, in a sport where players are supposed to police themselves, where honor and honesty are supposed to be the foundation of everything, shaving even one stroke is treated like the ultimate betrayal. But Vijay has always said he did not do it. His defense centers on the person who was marking his card that day, an Indonesian amateur. the son of a high-ranking official within the Indonesian PGA. Vijay claims he was scapegoated, that it was easier for the establishment to ban a loud, outspoken kid from Fiji than to admit that someone connected to their own organization had made a mistake. Protect the local VIP, blame the outsider. Simple. Other players who were there tell a different story. American and Canadian pros, including a player named Jim Rutledge, said they saw Vijay notice an incorrect score on the leaderboard. And instead of correcting it, he tried to accept that wrong score on his signed card. The president of the Asian PGA Tour at the time, a man named John Bender, became the main accuser. And the punishment they handed down was brutal: indefinite suspension. In practice, it was a lifetime ban from the Asian Tour. Vijay Singh, at 22 years old, was labeled a cheat and erased from professional golf. Other players have been disqualified for scorecard errors before. It happens. But this was different. The severity of the punishment, the public shaming, the way it followed him for decades, all of it felt extreme. And Vijay believes he knows why. He was tall. He was outspoken. He was Indo-Fijian. He did not come from the right background. He did not fit the mold of what a professional golfer was supposed to look like or act like. So when something went wrong, it was easy to make him the villain. Whether he actually changed that score or not, the establishment decided he was guilty, and that decision nearly destroyed him. After the ban, Vijay was 22 years old, broke and unemployable in the only world he knew. The European Tour and PGA Tour were out of reach. The Asian circuit, which was supposed to be his bridge to those bigger stages, had slammed the door in his face. The media called him a cheat. Other players avoided him. For most people, that would have been the end of the story. But Vijay Singh is not most people. He ended up in Borneo, specifically a place called Keningau in the Crocker Range of Sabah, Malaysia. It was about as far from the glamour of professional golf as you could get. Keningau Golf and Country Club was a remote outpost in the interior rainforest, about 105 kilometers from the nearest airport, a 2-hour drive through the jungle. Vijay took a job there as the resident professional. He lived on almost nothing. He taught golf to local members and loggers, and he practiced. Not the way normal pros practice, he practiced like a man possessed. The heat in Borneo was extreme. The humidity made it feel like you were breathing through a wet towel. Vijay would hit hundreds of balls a day until his hands bled. Literally bled. He was not trying to improve his swing. He was trying to prove the world wrong. Every shot was an act of defiance. Every blister was a reminder that they had tried to erase him and failed. This was not a training camp. It was survival. He taught lessons to local members and loggers who barely knew who he was or what he had lost. They saw a dedicated club pro. He saw himself as a ghost, erased from the sport he loved, working in obscurity whilst the golf world moved on without him. The isolation ate at him. No tournament leaderboards to chase, no fellow pros to compete against. Just the jungle, the heat, and the relentless voice in his head. He even redesigned parts of the course, making the holes harder and more challenging and more unforgiving. Think about that. A man in exile living in the jungle, making his own world more difficult because the world outside had been so cruel to him. That tells you everything about his mindset. Keningau was not about getting better. It was about building a fortress inside his own head, a place where no one could hurt him again. And when he finally left Borneo 2 years later in 1987, he was not the same cocky kid who jumped airport fences in Fiji. He was something colder, harder, more dangerous. Vijay returned to professional golf on the fringes, the safari circuit in Africa, small events, low prize money. But in 1988, he won the Nigerian Open, proving he still had the skill. The question was whether he could ever shake the label. The answer, it turned out, was no. But he learned to use it as fuel instead of letting it crush him. By the time he made it to the PGA Tour in 1993, at 30 years old, he was already older than most rookies. But he had the intensity of someone who had clawed his way back from the dead. He won his very first event on tour, the Buick Classic, a dream debut. But even then, the 1985 incident followed him. Reporters brought it up. Profiles mentioned it. Other players whispered about it. Vijay refused to engage. He gave short, cold answers to the media. He avoided interviews. He built walls around himself. He refused to represent Fiji in the World Cup of golf. He did not make close friends on tour. He pointed to jealousy and envy back home as reasons why he kept his distance from others. The truth is, he trusted almost no one. His wife Ardina and his son Kos were the only people allowed into his inner circle. Everyone else was a potential threat, someone who might use his past to tear him down. And so he stayed isolated, focused, mechanical. That isolation let him work on his game with an intensity that other players could not match. And in 2004, it paid off. He became world #1, knocking Tiger Woods off the top spot. Think about that. A man who was banned at 22, exiled to the jungle, labeled a cheat for life, became the best player on the planet. That should have been the redemption story, the ultimate comeback. But Vijay does not see it that way. Because even at the top, the whispers never stopped. The establishment never apologized. The label never went away. Now, at 62, Vijay is making a claim that a lot of people do not want to hear. He says the 1985 ban was not just about a scorecard. It was about who he was. An Indo-Fijian kid from a working-class background with no college pedigree and no connections. He did not fit the gentleman's game archetype that golf loves to sell. And when something went wrong, it was easy to make an example out of him. Other players, he says, had their mistakes handled quietly. Behind closed doors, a quiet word, a slap on the wrist. But his mistake, real or not, became a permanent scar. He points to other incidents. In 1968, Roberto De Vicenzo signed an incorrect scorecard at the Masters. He recorded a higher score than he actually shot, which cost him a chance at a playoff. The golf world called it tragic. They felt sorry for him. He was hailed as an honest man who made an innocent mistake. But when Vijay allegedly signed a lower score, he was called a cheat. For life. Same sport, same kind of error, completely different treatment. The difference, Vijay believes, was not the mistake itself, but who made it and where they came from. And it did not stop in 1985. In 2013, Vijay admitted to using deer antler spray in a Sports Illustrated article. The spray was supposed to contain a banned hormone called IGF-1. The World Anti-Doping Agency later determined that the spray he used did not actually contain a performance-enhancing concentration of that hormone. But the PGA Tour did not care. They moved to suspend him for 90 days anyway. Vijay responded by filing a lawsuit, claiming he was being publicly humiliated while other players who faced similar issues were quietly protected. The case dragged on for 5 years before it was settled. But the damage was done. Once again, Vijay Singh was the villain. Once again, he was fighting the system. Once again, it felt like the rules were being applied more harshly to him than to anyone else. So here is where we land. Was Vijay treated unfairly in 1985? Maybe. Was the punishment extreme compared to how other players have been disciplined for scorecard issues? Absolutely. But does that mean Vijay is completely innocent? That is harder to say. The people who were there, the other pros who saw what happened, they tell a story that does not line up with his version. And even if you believe he was scapegoated, you also have to admit that he has a pattern. Australia in 1982, Jakarta in 1985, the deer antler spray in 2013. Every time there is controversy, every time he fights back, every time he blames the system, here's the truth that nobody wants to admit. Vijay Singh is not a clean hero who was wronged by a corrupt system. And he is not a villain who cheated his way through golf and then cried victim when he got caught. He is something messier. He is a man who made mistakes, who faced consequences that may have been harsher than they should have been, and who used that anger to become one of the greatest players the game has ever seen. His story is not black and white. It is gray, complicated, human. But here is what is not complicated: the work. After the 1985 ban, after Borneo, after the isolation and the whispers and the labels, Vijay Singh outworked everyone. Even now, at 62 years old, he is still on the practice range for hours every single day, still working on his transition, still chasing ball speed, still grinding like a man half his age who has something to prove. He won more tournaments after the age of 40 than any player in history. 22 wins. That record is not about talent. It is about obsession. It is about a man who decided that if the world was going to call him a cheat, he would beat them so thoroughly that they would have no choice but to respect the numbers. Vijay Singh built a psychological fortress after 1985. He let almost no one in. He trusted almost no one. He gave the media nothing. And in doing that, he turned himself into a machine, the kind of player who could displace Tiger Woods at his peak, the kind of player who could win majors in his 40s, the kind of player who would rather bleed on a practice range in the jungle than give his enemies the satisfaction of seeing him quit. That fortress made him great, but it also made him lonely, isolated, bitter. The establishment tried to erase Vijay Singh in Jakarta. They branded him, they exiled him, they wanted him gone. But all they did was create the most relentless competitor the game has ever seen. Whether he changed that scorecard or not, whether he was scapegoated or guilty, one thing is certain. He refused to let them win. He came back, he dominated, he proved that the only thing more powerful than a lifetime ban is the cold fury of a man with nothing left to lose. So what is the lesson here? Maybe it is that the golf establishment does not always get it right. Maybe it is that second chances matter. Or maybe it is that sometimes the people we call villains are just people who made bad choices in desperate moments and then spent the rest of their lives trying to prove they were more than that one mistake. The truth is probably all of those things at once. Vijay Singh is 62 years old now. He has 3 majors, 34 PGA Tour wins, a Hall of Fame plaque, and a shadow that still follows him everywhere he goes. He does not ask for forgiveness or sympathy. He just asks that you look at the work. Look at what it took to climb back. Look at the hours on the range. Look at the years of isolation. Look at the fortress he built inside himself just to survive. and decide for yourself whether the punishment ever really fit the crime, whether the system that branded him was protecting the game or protecting itself. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below with your take. Do you think Vijay was treated unfairly in 1985, or do you think he brought it on himself? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.